guys, welcome back. It is your favorite game from the left, and I'm here with some more of Assault Sicily 43. We're going to jump right back into where we left off. We did our setup video in the previous one, so we've actually got the game ready to go. Did want to touch on this little tidbit, and actually I got to fix those counters because my cat was on the table. Now we're good. Now we're good. My damn cat got on the table and knocked all my counters around. Thankfully, the Americans stayed in the right spot, but the Italians got devastated by the kitty offensive and took out my troop management board while I was at it. I wanted to touch on this part again because I was a touch off with it when I was first talking about it, so I just cut that off. The thing with this is when you are playing the game, you have this troop management board, okay? Each one of the units, I'll throw the card up in the corner so you guys can see it, but the card has a specific point cost. So like our bazooka guys here are 3. So let's say we lose a set of bazookas. Well, that means this ticks up 3 points. Okay, so you'll tick it up however many points that unit costs, and then if it hits 12, it's going to drop back down to 0, and then this ticks up. So 1 point of pressure for each 12 that you go up. And if you start hitting this area of withdrawal, surrender, routed, then your units can actually flee the battlefield, okay? The thing of it is the Italians here, they start right here, like the loss of a single unit could be enough to put them into withdrawal, okay? Some of their units, let's see, this one, I know, this big gun, that's 16 points right there. This tank is 8. This tank destroyer is 13. That's enough to just tick them over. And you're like, oh my God, they're going to lose one vehicle and they're going to start withdrawing. It doesn't work just like that. You can do things that will bring your pressure down. For example, the very, very first thing I'm planning on doing with the Italians is trying to get this objective, because that objective is worth 2 points. And that will drop their pressure down by the value of whatever the objective is. So that will take them from 5 to 3 right off the bat, getting that first objective. So that's why they're starting so high on this troop management board, is the fact that they are very close to taking an objective that will bring them down. And when you're taking a neutral one, you just gain or lose that pressure, right? That's it. However, if they start getting these objectives, the ones that are already in the American hands, that's why the Americans have no pressure right now, because they pretty much got all the objectives. Yet, if they take one of these, not only do they lose that pressure, but the Americans gain that pressure. So there very quickly can be a swing in this pressure that will push the Americans all the way up to the top if they start losing too many of these objectives. The one that has the skull, that's actually the one that goes up this track to represent the damage that they're taking. And then the flag ones are the ones that are going to go up, and then you have the withdrawal, surrender, and all that good stuff. It took me a little bit to get the troop management board. Like I said, I had Wolfgang with me. Wolfgang knows everything. He designed the damn thing. So I didn't have to worry about learning this as much, but now we can take this off and we can jump into the game proper. All right, I do have my 2 sheets here of action counters. I'm going to just pull those out as I need them. I have my selection of the dice here. I switched to my little small dice tower. That way it's not taking up a whole bunch of space and we can easily see what's going on with the game. First thing that we're going to do is our initiative phase. We're going to see who has the initiative. And I'll tell you what, the Italians, yes, I'm going to keep calling them that.
So you mumble Italian and brazen through it. Is that the plan?
I don't speak Italian. Just keep your fucking mouth shut. In fact, why don't you start practicing right now?
Definitely want the initiative. They want to start because I'm thinking here on my strategy. I talked about this previously on which way I was going to go with it. And you see, I have done very little over here on the left. Just some rifles and some machine guns to kind of apply pressure on this side so they can't just focus all the way over here. And all the tanks, all the armor, all the vehicles are over here because there's really not much the Americans can do to fend off this type of assault. When it comes to indirect fire against armored vehicles, you in essence have to roll twice. So let's say our field gun over here fires at these guys indirectly. Well, you, what do they have? Something like 2 yellows, a green, and something else. Let's find my field gun here. Yeah, they have 2 yellows, a green, and a blue is what they would roll. So essentially, if you do an indirect fire against an armored vehicle, you roll those dice. So here's what we would roll. Let's say we roll it. And this is what they get. Okay? You're looking at that and you're going, that's a good roll. That's 3 hits and a critical. That is excellent. Except what this means is these are the dice that we actually get to roll in the attack. So any blanks that you get go away. And then you actually roll your dice for your attack. So our actual attack would only be a hit and a crit, or 2 hits and a crit for the attack against the armored vehicle if we were doing an indirect fire. That's the way it works with indirect fire against armored vehicles. You essentially fire twice, but you only count the second one, and any blanks on that first roll are removed. So it accounts for the fact that they have armor and that they can withstand more of that heavy ordnance than infantry or artillery can. Now, when I'm looking at that over here, I don't really have much of a chance against these guys with this indirect fire because I'd be wasting my time putting it over there. And this field gun firing at these guys indirectly has to be at least 5 hexes out. That means 1 turn of movement and they're going to be inside of his indirect fire range. So I'm going to have to push this field gun up, and he's slow. He can't move there, which means it's a delayed action. That means it's going to take me 2 turns to move 1 hex with this field gun. That's horrible. Now, if I took him with the truck, yes, obviously I could race him around, but I don't want him to move away. I want him to move right there so he can fire up against these guys. That means 2 turns to get him into position and hoping my infantry don't get blown apart before I get him into position. I'm really trying to work against myself in a hardcore manner here. Like, okay, setting up all of the Americans into what I thought was a good position and then trying to outthink myself. I'm like, well, I've got no direct fire assets. They don't have anything that can hit armor at range with the exception of indirect fire. And the indirect fire, the assets that I have over here can only start firing, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, has to be 1 row ahead of them and farther back. So he can barely hit them now, and we'll have to hit them later on. So 1 turn of movement, they're going to be out of it. I have to put him into a spot where he can directly fire on them, but that means they can directly fire on him. So I am not in a great position. But we will have to see how that all plays out if the Americans can pull it around. Here's what we're going to do. Red die is going to be for the Italians, and the blue die is going to be for the Americans. We're going to roll, figure out our initiative here. Whoever's higher is going to have initiative, which means they get to go first. I've already got my planning phase set out, but I will touch on what it all means. All right, so let's roll for them. And the Italians get it. That is key. That is going to make a difference for us over here, because I started 1 Italian out here in the open where a machine gun can just chew right into him. But I did that on the hopes that they would get to go first so he could run into this building, gain the objective, and be able to survive the oncoming onslaught. But even if he doesn't, he's going to be removing pressure from them. Plus, I'm hoping to move some of their guns up into a good position. Now, doesn't just go straight into that action phase, though. Let me grab something now. All right, so you go into your planning phase after your initiative phase. And your planning phase is when you're going to place out all of these little tokens, your command tokens. They are 2-sided, red and white. That way you can flip them all over on 1 turn, flip them back the other way on the next turn. Makes it easy to keep track of which ones you've used. Remember, though, each side has 3 that they keep in their hand that they can use for any troops. So you've got your selection of cards laid out next to the table. That's why none of these counters have stats on them, because the cards have stats. It makes the counters look clean, but it does increase the amount of table space that is required because obviously you don't have the stats on the counters. But to me, this is easier to see than the small numbers on the counter. Like I said, I'm getting old and I don't have the best of eyesight anymore. What you're going to do is you're going to place those little tokens on any of those units you want to use, leaving out 3. And you have to think, right, what do I want to activate? And it matters because next we go into our support phase. Our support phase is when you have things like indirect fire assets pulling their stuff. Let me actually show you here. 60 millimeter mortar, I gave him a counter as well, so he can fire in the support phase. This is when all the ones that have that little S, right, in the yellow hexagon there, can do their indirect fire. They can pop smoke. They can do anything like that. Definitely go check out that live playthrough I did with Wolfgang, because you see in that game how my mortars fired every turn. I used the command points. I would let my rangers hang back if it meant I got to fire those mortars off, because those mortars put up a smoke wall that allowed me to move up the beachhead and actually attack his troops. That game was awesome. It came down to the last minute. It was a really, really cool game. Had a lot of fun with it. And it really was a nail biter. There were times that I thought I had it. There were times I thought he had it. And it just kept slipping back and forth. That's how you can tell a good tactical game. So what that means now that we are in our support phase is any indirect fire assets you want to fire, anything that happens here in this support phase will come to pass. The Italians do not have anything in the support phase, but the Americans do. They have their 60 millimeter mortar here, and they have their 2 field guns. I keep batting it around. I got to stop. I got to actually do some activations. Here's what we're going to do. I am going to use a command point. We're going to activate 6 millimeter mortars. We are going to do an indirect fire, and it's going to be 3 attack dice against him, against that LMG squad there. And it will be that 2 greens and a blue. Damn, that 60 millimeter is not as good as that 80 millimeter by a large margin, but that's all right. We can deal with that. He is in trees. Trees, that's heavy forest, which means he's getting 2 yellows and a green as defense against that. And I think there is a penalty for taking indirect fire. Okay, so here's what we're doing. I am continuing on with that. I had to grab out a counter here. And sadly enough, my rifles are getting a -1 attack die because I'm having my rifles right here do the shooting. Oh, and those are wrong. Those are Rangers 43. I actually grabbed the wrong counters for those guys. It's not going to matter. I'll switch them out in the next video. It should be Rangers instead of rifles, but I'm using the right stats, so it's not going to affect anything. But effectively what these guys are doing is they are spotting the LMG squad for them. So they are going to get the penalty for basically doing a half action. If they already had a -1 attack die, then they would actually receive a marker like they've been activated anyway. But this allows them to conduct their fire. Okay, so I think we're good. I was checking my modifiers, my rolls, but I think we are good to go ahead and conduct our attack. They are getting pretty decent stuff. Now, if this were a direct fire attack coming from the 60 millimeter mortar straight up, they would actually get more because it's passing some terrain that would cause it to become degrading, but they are not getting that because they're effectively arcing the shot in. So they're only getting their defensive dice. So let's see what we're going to get. 2 hits, not too bad, not too bad. Probably going to whiff because those yellow dice are pretty good. They got doubles on them. Yeah, complete whiff. Complete whiffity whiff. So no effect on our dice. All right, but that means we have activated our 60 millimeter mortars. They're not going to get to fire, and I'm doing other stuff with my field guns, not indirect fire. Crap, I wanted indirect fire with these guys, but that's all right. My plans have changed. Now, we will just go ahead and slide right into the activation phase. Activation phase is going to start with the Italians, and the Italians put 1 marker specifically on their rifles, 43, because they wanted to do something very specific with these guys, and that is to do a fast action. Fast action means infantry can take an extra movement point. So these rifles have 2 movement points. 1 movement point to go there, and then moving into a building is 2 movement points. So you either have to be adjacent to it or have a fast action. So they are doing that so they can get here, gain this objective, and capture it. Now that's actually going to hurt them because a fast action flips over at the end of the round, and you see it's going to be a -1 attack die for them on the next turn. But it's not a huge deal. That will bring them down on their little board. I actually marked that. So now they are at 3 points versus the 5 points. So they've got some breathing room now if they take some hurt from the Americans. I've got certain things I'm doing for sure, and I kind of want to do those first just to make sure that I do them, even though it's not combat actions, because I don't want to end up pausing the video and forgetting my actions. So that's the first action for the Italians. First action for the Americans is going to be moving these rifles over one. That's going to be their movement, and I actually might do the slow maneuver with those guys. Where's my counters for the slow maneuvers? Because there's no reason not to do that. I'm not going to take a shoot action with them, so I can do a hide action, and that gives them an extra little bit of defense, and they can actually go into a hidden scenario to where they're even harder to spot, and they can conduct an ambush later if they want to. So it gives them some potential bonuses. No reason for me not to do that. And actually, let me go ahead and grab out what I know I'm going to need, which is a delay counter. Where the hell is the delayed counter? There it is, delayed action. Because I know I'm going to be needing that for that field gun on the next turn, but no biggie. Now, that was the first must-have on the Americans. Now for the Italians, we're definitely moving up with this Lanza, because I did not start him pointing in the right direction, but that's because I knew I wanted to move him up. They could only start at this range band. So I want to move him up and change his facing. And I can change his facing up to 1 hex side for free. And it's basically where do I want to point his gun. Because if I point his ass in that way, he'll be able to fire down in this direction. If I point his ass in that way, he'd be able to fire down at here. So I can either go like that, where he can fire down over here. Basically, he can't fire out of his front. So I'm thinking if I point him like so, he can fire down along this direction, hit those rifles. I think that machine gun's out of his line of fire. No, not really, because this is considered flank. So he could do that, yeah, because up this way is this frontal arc. It kind of spans out in like that direction. He can fire everywhere except where he is pointing. And that, yeah, he's got plenty of movement points to do that because it costs him 4 to move into that building hex, I do believe. Yeah. That's what we're going to do to him. And it doesn't give him much. It gives him like a extra blue die worth of defense. But considering he only has blue die for defense, let's see, playing buildings. That's the thing. In this game, you can actually park vehicles in building hexes, and they're not in the building. They're essentially abutted up against the building, is what you would say, thematically. So putting him there is definitely the way to go for him. He's having to use all of his movement points to do that. So that is a full normal action for him. But like I said, we can do that, and I could... He can't do a fast action because he's slow. I do believe. Is he slow? No, he's not slow. He's tall. Limited pivot, setup time. Cannot perform move fire, fire move actions. Yeah. Tall. 1 attack die can be re-rolled when attacking this unit. In close combat range fire, attacker's choice, re-rolled result must be used. And yeah, he can only fire in a 240-degree arc. So basically, like this, everything back here. My friggin' laser is over there at Lock and Load Tactical. I have to grab that one up. But that gives him a line of fire over most of this stuff, over in this direction, which is where I wanted him. Basically, a lot of these units are having to move to get into a position to fire, but that's okay. That's all right. Because we are doing this as well. The field gun is being moved up into this building to fire out directly against the enemy. There, move that over a little bit. And essentially, I'm moving him into the hex right now, but he doesn't move into the hex yet. And the reason that is because he does not have the movement points to actually go in there. He's slow. He's only got one movement point. You can move someone into a hex that they don't have the movement points to move into. Same with like infantry climbing a steep slope. But essentially what you were doing is putting a delayed action marker on them. So it's taking them a while to get over there. So once you get done with him, on the next turn, I flip this over and it counts as a normal action. So it's 2 actions, turn to turn, to move this guy 1 freaking hex. How horrible is that? That means that the enemy has a good chance to get up there, but I've got no choice. His indirect fire just is not going to do any good for me. I am hoping he can survive the onslaught of the tanks that are coming, but if they take him out, then it's pretty much it. The Americans that get ruffle stomped because the tanks will just be able to come in and lay waste to them. It's only my hope that they will survive long enough to get this guy some hurt going out. All right, let me see how much time has elapsed. Unfortunately, I've talked too much. We're getting close to the end of this video, but I had a few things that I had to take care of. So it is what it is. But we will go ahead and do one more of the Italian activations. Let me make sure. Yep, I activated that. Yeah, should be 2 and 2. All right, for each one of them, they've activated there. What else do we want to do with the Italians? Well, I wanted to get these rifles moved up. I'm going to have to use a command point to activate these rifles. And I'm wanting to get them out of the line of fire, out of an open hex, in essence, because they're out there in the open. I don't want them to get shot, so we'll put them there. Now they're in a building hex. He's in a building hex. Tanks have all their frontal armor pointed towards my guns, so they're ready to go in. Actually, let's do one more American turn as well. Let's get some shots going here. Maybe the Sherman firing at those Brenda machine guns. I'm going to have to do a spotting roll on them, but that's okay. That's all right. We can do that. Let's see. Our Sherman here has, against infantry, some decent stats. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? He's within 8, so that'd be 2 red and a blue if I fired at him. Sadly, they're hardened, so they don't have better. But I might be able to wound that machine gun because that machine gun can chew me up. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to activate our Sherman here. Have him perform a fire action. Now he has to attempt to spot. I got to find the spotting thing. I just had it. Here we go. Spotting table. He is trying to spot infantry. Is it a terrain bonus? Target is in the arc of fire. Really? It's just a 2+ to spot automatic? Yeah, with any firing status. Yeah, simply says 2+ to spot him. Don't roll a 1. All right, no 1, no extra defense for him. Okay, got it. Cool. Now for defense, that Brenda machine gun is in some heavy woods though. Heavy woods, heavy forest, is going to give him 2 yellows and a green as defense. So it's pretty good. Plus his inherent defense. I forgot to roll that earlier, but that's okay. That's all right. No one got damaged, so it's no big loss. His inherent defense for the Brenda machine gun is another yellow. So he will get all of that. There's nothing else blocking this. Is that degrading? What is that brush? Let's see. No, the brush gives him a blue. It gives him an extra blue. Damn, you see how the dice just start to add up? So that little pile there is his defensive dice. He's getting that from his terrain. He's getting that from his actual stats, right? So everyone has that. And then he's getting this because my line of sight is crossing this set of brush. So it makes him a little bit harder to hit. So that's all right. And he would have gotten even more if I not spotted him. Come on. Throw him away. And these red dice are the best. 2 hits. He has a very good chance of blocking. And he did. Good grief. 4 hits and a suppression. Absolutely block the living hell out of that. That's horrible. You suck. Ugh. All right. That is what it is. Was there anyone else I had to move up? All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick up on the next video. We're going to start back up with the Italians. Damn, I can't believe I wasted my Sherman activation on nothing. I wanted that guy dead. Yeah, blow him away. And I'm wanting to hit someone with a big gun so I can use some of this terrain modifying. Like you can create craters or destroy buildings if you hit them with a weapon that has a big explosion, a blast to it. Like the field guns, they have that. I think the 60mm mortars might have a blast too. Definitely the tank does. Yeah, but they have to be at different ranges. There's a different range that comes into play with that. Anyway, we will pick back up with the Italians' turn, and I think I'm going to go ahead and start moving the tanks and firing with the rest of the guys. These LMG squads and rifles over here, these guys aren't really trying to move up yet. They just want to put out suppressing fire to pin down the American troops to keep the Americans from being able to move around or really react. If these 3 tanks can push up over here, like I said, the only thing that can stop them is that field gun, and that field gun has another turn before it can fire. So it can't fire until turn 3. These guys are going to be doing a lot of moving and shooting. So let's see, 1, 2, yeah. They'll be up to about here by the time he can actually fire because they can move and fire. And they have decent guns. If they can get in close range, they get some red dice. But even at far range, they're chucking some yellows. This tank destroyer can actually put out some HE explosive against artillery and infantry as well. So they'll be causing them some problems. But the building will give them some defense because that is a heavier building. So yeah, that will give them at least extra greens and blues, plus they're hardened, which is extra blues. It should make them hopefully tanky enough to survive the onslaught from these tanks before he can actually get his shots off. I'm thinking now I probably should have done the indirect fire with this one on those to hopefully slow them down a little bit, but I wanted to take one direct shot up here at the LMG to try to blow him out to reduce some of that volume of fire that's coming in. Because you think machine gun firing over here, machine gun firing over here, machine gun firing over here, pinning down the American troops, but they got some machine guns that can fire back. Sniper that might be able to put some work out, but we'll have to see how it pans out. Anyway, you guys stay tuned. We will pick back up with it, and we'll see how this assault from the Italians' tanks plays out. All right, that's going to be it for me. Y'all take care. I'll catch you in the next one.